Okay, Q build Zeratul. A few things to understand. Number one, at level 1, your Q will always clear the wave in 2 Qs. This is because your Q cooldown is 6 seconds, and it will almost always take you exactly 6 seconds to clear the wave. You saw that example at level 1. I can give you another example at level 30. Nothing will have changed. Because the way this Q is balanced is you press it twice in order to clear the wave, pretty much no matter what level you're at. So we can do this, and you can see it still won't finish the wave perfectly. Now, obviously at level 30, you can auto-attack to finish, but that's not the point. The point is that it will always take you a minimum time of 6 seconds to clear a wave. Because of this, you want to generally press Q on the wave as soon as possible, so you can get your Q cooldown rolling faster. If you are able to do an aggressive position like this and use your E to get backwards and to relative safety, you're then able to auto-attack the enemy front line once each, auto-attack this, and then on your way out, these 2 minions will die. This is from level 4 onwards, and this is true to pretty much level 20. Really important that you clear waves efficiently on Zeratul, because in Q-Build specifically, you have fuck all else to do until level 10. As a Zeratul, you want to always prevent the enemy offlaner from rotating to the enemy team. You do not want both you and the offlaner to rotate to the enemy team and your team. Why is this? Because the enemy offlaner is almost always better than you at team fighting. So you want to prevent a 5v5 from happening at pretty much all costs. You do not ever want to go fight. Early game Zeratul, very weak. At level 7, you have a choice between 3 different buttons. We're not going to talk about Warp Skirmisher because it doesn't get as much value without Might of the Nerazim, and it's not very defensive oriented. It's more for offense. Seeker in the Dark, so your W takes longer to explode. When you reactivate it, you get 30% increased move speed for 3 seconds. Seeker's really, really nice in that it allows you to play more aggro in a lane, in terms of you can position yourself in such a way that you are very, very gankable. And then you can W to one of the targets that comes to gank you. For example, let's pretend that's a hero. You can do this, and then you can do this with your move speed. And because you retain the move speed after the blink, you don't waste any of your blink, so to speak. You're not wasting this distance at all because you retain the move speed the entire fucking time. So W plus E pretty much gives you a length-long escape, as long as you're doing it from a position where you are moving to the left. Basically, like Illidan, you are safer if you are here than if you are here. That's very, very counterintuitive. But if you have the wave to your left, you actually have more distance to move and juke people than you do if you were to stay right here and just use your E to get to the left. So you always want to open with a W and close with the E to escape. Defensive play really important on Zeratul because, again, until level 10, you are pretty much just playing to clear waves and play as defensive as humanly possible. You don't really want to do anything outside of that until we hit 10. Now at 10, this flips on its fucking head. Because at 10, you get access to the universal most powerful ability in the game, Void Prison. Void Prison can be used to engage, it can be used to disengage, it can be used to prevent an enemy from popping off, it can be used to enable your team to pop off. It can be used to isolate something on the side. Pretend this is an Uther who's going to save his DPS, or enable his DPS to go ham. You lock down the Uther, you kill a DPS over here, bing bada boom, you win the team fight, right? Pretend that this ally over here is very critical to winning the game, and the enemy team is running at them. You put this down, the ally gets out, you prevent the enemy team from getting their win condition, right? Void Prison's uses are only limited by your creativity. Worth noting, if you put this on a boss point, it will freeze the boss point. So there's no way for you to just put this down on the boss point, go stand inside of it, and cap the boss. Zeratul obviously unaffected by his own Void Prisons. If you're in Quick Match and versus another Zeratul, you will still be frozen by their Void Prisons. Keep that in mind for you Quick Match players. VP otherwise, extremely versatile button. It costs 80 mana. Which is worth noting, because when we do get to 1620, you do start just devouring through your mana pool a little ravenously. On the topic of mana costs, your Q is pretty much free if you're only pressing Q. Your W costs 70 fucking mana. The fact that your W costs 70 fucking mana makes it a lot easier to go Wormhole at level 7 instead of going Seeker in the Dark. Wormhole is very, very simple, right? Exact same as Serial 13. You go back and forth. Now, there are a few nice caveats to Wormhole and a few downsides. One of the positives is that it does not break your stealth. Because it does not break your stealth, you can use it to flank the enemy team without immediately getting like autoed and insta-gibbed by point and click abilities like the Variant Taunt, you know, like the Uther E. Now, another interesting point to note is when you teleport, you can see right here there's a cooldown before you can teleport back, and that's a 1.25 second cooldown. This is an intentional nerf on Blizzard's part that was applied after a tournament where Wormhole was taken like 100% of the time, and Zera had like a 90% game participation. I believe this was in 2017 or 2018. Don't quite recall when. But basically the issue was having full versatility on your E pretty much makes it so that you can do no counterplay to the Zeratul blinking in. Now, the counterplay to the counterplay is basically what you do is you try to blink in from out of distance, you walk up to the target, you Q, and then you immediately E out. The reason why you Q is because your Q is pretty much the majority of your damage on this hero. We're not going to talk about psionic strengths applications here because Rending Cleave just does more if you're able to wait the 3 seconds. And there's only really one situation where this isn't the case, i.e. you VP the target after Qing them, wait for a Q, and then you drop VP and Q. That's the only situation where Rending Cleave doesn't get full value. In pretty much every other situation, the other situation I suppose being when you're nanoed, or you have a Malfurion D rolling on you, and you're also proccing your 16, but those are very esoteric, so we're not going to go through them. Level 10 Void Prison. Level 13 is your defensive talent tier. So pretty much pick Wormhole when you want to poke the enemy team, pick Seeker when you think A, you can hit it, and B, you need more safety in the early game versus late game. With Seeker specifically, it's also an option for you to go Unwavering Pressure at level 20. This is an extremely esoteric talent and also an extraordinarily powerful one that gives you the most mobility of pretty much anything in his kit. Shadow Stride with Warp Skirmisher included. This is a debatable point, but we're not going to go through it because, again, a bit too esoteric. Let's focus on the things that are more general application. Level 13, you have 3 choices. If you're in an SL environment, a quick match environment, or an environment where you don't depend on a healer, either because they're incompetent or you literally just don't have one, go Mending Strikes. Mending Strikes allows you to trade in the lane with hostile heroes and still be able to, you know, gain yourself some HP back. Obviously, the amount of HP lifesteal is very, very low. It's not comparable to, say, an Illidan, because his auto attacks just hit harder, and Zeratul's autos do hit relatively hard, but also relatively slow, which is good for this style of ability. Over the course of clearing a wave, for example, this will give you like 20% of your bar back, and because you'll spend so much time clearing a wave, doing camps, all that jazz, it will give you a very, very good amount to sustain. Just don't expect it to do anything during a team fight, because that's not what it's for. With Might, that's a very, very different story, but again, we're talking about VP, not Might. With level 13, you also have the option of going Shroud of Adun. Shroud of Adun is kind of the middle ground between Mending Strikes and Spell Shields. Basically, while you are stealthed, you will slowly gain a shield up to 20% over 3 seconds, so that's approximately 6.66% per second of shield that you get. The reason the 6.66 is relevant is because if you do this and you blink out, you need to wait for a couple of seconds, so 3 full seconds for your shield to come up, then 3 full seconds for your cloak to come up, and then you can see after that there's a 3-second cooldown on your blink, so you can go back in, drop a Q, and blink back out, right? So this is very, very useful for this in and out poke style. And again, the reason why we do this in and out poke style will become apparent once you see the 16. Spell Shield is extremely useful for a more competitive setting, or a setting where the enemy team has something like an Uther or a Brightwing, where you know for a fact you're going to go in and immediately get polyed, and the poly is going to be followed up with more CC. In this situation, you effectively double your HP bar for the purpose of eating spells, and this will give you enough time to survive and then Wormhole back out, assuming that the CC chain is not longer than 4 full seconds. If it's longer than 4 full seconds, you're just stuck there, at which point you have to Void Prison, which can be useful. But basically what this allows you to do is it allows you to dive in, eat a bunch of enemy cooldowns kind of for free, and if you can get out, you trade it really positively with the enemy team, because Zeratul's a very high priority target. We'll talk about Vorpal when we talk about Void Prison usage after I talk about the 1620, because Vorpal usage is pretty much for the late game more than anything else. Can be used to juke and lane, but more than anything else, you're using it to get Void Prisons. Void Slash, very, very good ability. This is what makes your hero a hero. Without this ability, you are literally not a character. Once you get this ability, you are the best sustained damage in the game for poke-oriented combat. You go like this, you go like this, you back out, and you can see that's an immediate 2200 damage across 3 targets from pressing pretty much 2 buttons. And then you can do it right away again. After a few seconds, you go back in, press this, drop it out, right? And that's another 2200 HP. There are very few sustained supports that can actually deal with that much damage throughput. There are supports that can deal with this damage throughput, but the problem is if they're dealing like 100% with you pressing 1 button and the rest of your team has a lot of fucking buttons and is actively pressing those buttons, their support is just going to get out-traded just left, right, and center. They're not going to be able to keep up with the damage. So this is a really, really useful style. The other reason why it is effective to do this poke style is because A, you have the Wormhole, which allows you to do this much more easily. B, if you do this and they pressure you, you can drop a Void Prison, which then pressures them even more. Because number one, when they come out of the Void Prison, you're going to press Q again, right? And that Q is 100% of the time going to hit. Number two, when they come out of the Void Prison, you're expecting your team to have set up on them in some capacity. And because your team is going to set up on them in some capacity, you are going to pretty much kill them. This is, again, less true in a SL environment or in a quick match environment. So for those of you who are in those environments, what you need to do instead is the VP combo. And this is a self-enable combo. So we E in, press this, and press this. Then we Vorpal back in, press Q, and then we drop the Void Prison. You're going to wait for your E and your Q to come back up. So max duration the Void Prison. And then you're going to press Q again. And pretty much this allows you to get 3 multi-target Qs almost for free. And all it requires you to do is blink in auto once to get your Vorpal. And your Vorpal allows you to blink to the last target you auto-attacked, and you get to do this. Right? So it's very, very important to note that when you do this, you are all-inning off your Void Prison. If you don't have a Void Prison and you do this, you are basically committing to my target has to die or I am going to lose. If you do not get the kill in that period of time, you are fucked. In that second, are you immune to stun lock? You mean in the 1.25 seconds during Wormhole? No, you're not. You are very stunnable during this time. It's just hard to target you because you're stealthed. Because you are stealthed, point and click abilities won't work on you, and auto attacks won't hit you, by default from the enemy just kind of looking at you. But buttons that require you to have a target, they fundamentally won't work. So that's one of the most useful things for this style. Now at level 20, our style is going to dramatically shift, and we are going to get access to Shadow Mending. Shadow Mending is effectively balanced around the notion of hitting 3-man Qs. If you're hitting 3-man Qs into the enemy team, you will heal so much with Shadow Mending that they effectively won't be able to trade with you in any situation. I'm just going to take a bunch of damage right here so I can demonstrate how much healing Shadow Mending can give you in a poke-oriented style. So the purpose of Zeratul isn't necessarily just to poke. He can be used to chase, close kills, and all that jazz. But the main thing that people don't seem to get about the Q build is doing this. Obviously, I didn't even get the Vorpal there, but you can see off of one Q, I pretty much got 33% of my bar back, approximately. We're going to do another Q, and we're just going to stand here still, and you're going to see this is pretty much going to full bar me, right? So a little bit over 33% of your bar comes back every time you hit a 3-man Q. The way you can do this calculation is about 10% of your bar per hero hit. This is a very rough math. But the important thing to note is, number one, you need to proc the 16, always. So the minimum math you do with this is you must hit 2 targets or more. If you hit less than 1 target, you're fucked. Number two, the range on the level 1 makes this a great deal easier than it would be otherwise. I have seen some Zeratuls take Shadowhunter at level 1 or move unseen with this build, specifically because they feel they should be able to hit the cleave without Greater Cleave. I've seen a few one-tricks in very, very high ELOs in Korea do this. It was really interesting to watch them and stalk them a little bit. This was way back in the day, though. This was no time recently. I don't know if there are any Zeratuls right now doing this. In Quick Match, there probably are somewhere. Otherwise, your playstyle very linear, right? Poke, Q, drop out, scale, wait for 16. Whenever you have a Void Prison, run to your team, use Void Prison, and then go back to laning. You are a very, very macro-intensive hero because, again, your wave clear is very, very good. At any point in the game, 6 seconds, clears a wave. And that's pretty much it for Zeratul.